So I have been having a back and forth with Anti-Star again, and one thing I think is that really we need to have a video interface at one point. I know it will be painful and gruesome, and there may be bodily parts ripped asunder, but still I think it's easier than trying to do it through email, because if we both have fairly taciturn styles, if we are both kind of thrifty with words, I don't mean like angry necessarily or aggressive, but yeah, it's just difficult. And then sometimes I'm very tired and I can't put things into words, and I've got other matters happening in my head. And often the time difference, the time zone difference, creates these kinds of dramas too, because often I'm just finishing work late at night, and I've been focusing on that, and then it's kind of not easy to change pace and focus on an entirely different topic, even if it is one close to my heart. So this issue that he keeps raising with me, it's about identity politics and left and right wing identity politics, and it's a really deep topic. I've studied it for years because I've had to. My survival was at stake, and in a way kind of still is, but I'm maybe out of the woods, at least in regard to being deceived anymore. I mean, other things could still happen to me and probably will, but them's the breaks. I'm not a popular flavor, unfortunately. I am the definitive and quintessential unpopular flavor, even though I'm very nice, so go figure. It's raining heavily out here. It's why it's a bit dark inside, and I've tried to maximize the visual imagery by reducing the brightness so that my face doesn't go in and out of focus so much. Probably looks relatively sharp, which is of course something I would also hope for my mind at some point. Joking aside, one thing that is coming up these days with regard to identity politics is to what degree did the political correctness of the so-called left — I can only refer to them now as so-called because I am actually done with those cultural leftists. Now, that's not to say I'm done with political leftists or people that are real, but the majority of those who call themselves the left are not real, which I've discovered over more than 2 decades. There's no substance behind them. They say one thing, they seem to act one thing, but when it comes to the crunch, they do what's easy for them, which is to throw you under the bus. That's the easiest thing, and therefore they do it. Somehow they have been led to believe that it's not costly for them to do that, that's normal behavior, that is actually maybe even highly moral behavior, that maybe even that they are martyring themselves by having to endure the pain and agony of throwing me under the bus. Maybe so. So, I want to leave that statement with a long pause after having said it, because you're supposed to deduce that current so-called leftists today, the pseudo-left, are in fact nothing less, but nothing more than narcissists. I want you to pause and reflect on that. That is the substance of my critique. If there were more than narcissists, they would put themselves at stake. I don't mean burn themselves up necessarily, but even just a little bit at stake, just take a little bit of a burn for somebody else. If they are sincere, if they are like me, having tried their darndest to communicate and get through, don't suddenly pull the rug. Don't suddenly cast me off and discard me like a narcissist does. I'm coming to terms with things a bit better now. I have been through a rough patch because I have been hormonally depleted. It's really like having those shock absorbers, but now I found a lotion that I spread topically, and immediately it makes me feel better. I don't even know why. It's not anything I thought would happen, and it wasn't actually suggested that it would happen. According to the very basic blurb I read, I thought, why not try this? Why not have tried everything else? I've even tried speaking to physicians and said, please help me. And they kind of basically said, no, we're not going to help you in this instance. Do something else. So the difficulty of not being taken seriously, it throws you back on your own resources, which can be very tough and troubling. And one doesn't like to trouble the authorities after a certain point, because then one gets, puts oneself in danger of getting an additional label, which is really unhelpful to me. Having been stigmatized for so much of my life, to get an additional label, I'd rather, in a sense, die than be labeled again. Just really do not need that, do not want that, and actually would be very destructive to me overall. So, yeah, the so-called political left, which are not the left at all, to what extent did they actually cause the ascendancy of Donald Trump in politics? Well, they themselves would say, no, we didn't, and you're just misunderstanding us, and all that we did was always absolutely necessary and true. But from my point of view, from my experience, that is not the case. At least, just reducing it now for the moment to talking very personally indeed. There was no sincerity that I found in the so-called left and the pseudo-left. If there had been, there would have been some humanistic solidarity. So, and it bears repeating, what they did do was be opportunistic in throwing me away in order to preserve what they wanted in life, maybe their career, or maybe, not that I threatened anybody's career, but maybe their status or something like that. If I'm stigmatized, you throw me away. That's what you do. I've learned that, and it's the easiest thing to do. It's the most expedient thing to do. It's the most natural. It's the most reflexive. It's the most undisciplined. It's the most abusive. It's the most betraying thing to do, but that's what they do every single time. And not just the left, but others as well, because, of course, I have been marked by the stigma, the mark of Cain. Through colonialism, I didn't do that either, by the way. That happened early on in my attempt to get a job, and after the mark was set, I really couldn't find a way to get rid of it, even though I did try. I tried. I pulled out all stops. I even wrote about it. I expressed my outrage on the internet, and it didn't actually work for me. So this is all the background to why the contemporary pseudo-left has become hard of hearing, self-righteous, bigoted in its own right, and abusive too. Because if you try over 2 decades to communicate something very important to you and it still doesn't get through, then there is something wrong, not with me, not with the person who tries to get through, but with those who cannot seem to hear what ought to have become very obvious after 2 decades. And then, there's no apology, because narcissists don't apologize. And no recognition, and they just dig themselves in further. They entrench their positions, and they assert their righteousness, that they were right all along. So they can't respond in a normal human discursive fashion, in a dialectical fashion, to somebody like me who has something very important, in my view, of course, to say to them. But I want to address, while I'm here, just another aspect, which is that the amount of trauma I've undergone. I mean, I certainly never recognized it actually, but the sense of the rug being pulled out from under you, and that's what happened to me when I was 15. I had to migrate. I didn't really register it as trauma at that time, because I had so many schizoidal defenses. I just buried it, but that's also something that it's a kind of self-harm. You don't realize you're doing it. It's reflexive, but you just suppress emotion. And yeah, the rug totally, absolutely pulled out from under me. Loss of everything I knew, loss of identity, loss of values, because you can't embrace them in a totally different place. A loss of friends, loss of locale, loss of belonging, loss of any social capital I may, or my family may have accumulated, because families accumulate social capital on behalf of their children. That's how it works. That's how you gain some sense of respect in the community. Loss, loss, loss. And the rug being pulled out from under me, that was very, very traumatic, traumatizing. And I never realized it until later when I encountered workplace bullying and totally lost my health, that there had been something radically wrong in my life, that something had gone awry. And I do believe it was this sense of complete loss, the sense of having endured a very, very radical loss of identity. Which of course I was later blamed for as well. Blamed for, you lost your identity. It's like, the importance of being earnest, to lose one parent is kind of sad, but to lose both is careless. You lost your identity? That's pretty careless. Modern people, contemporary people are so glib. They are offensively and outrageously glib, and because they refuse to understand history, they refuse, as I said to Anti-Star, to digest history properly. They pretend to come to terms with it. They pretend that they're taking it very, very seriously indeed, but what they're actually doing is mounting a very fake narrative whereby they set themselves up to become the angels and martyrs for a cause, and they set you up to become the demon that has to be expelled for their cause, and they divide the world up into black and white, and then they feel really great when they kick you in the teeth, because they feel like, well, I didn't really mean to kick her in the teeth, but I had to do it for the cause because I'm a martyr for a very good positive cause. Self-deception, self-delusion, very, very infantile and offensive people. But it's not just the modern pseudo-left, it's not just the cultural leftists, but many in society are also afflicted by the same disease, even those on the right. This is a zeitgeist, it's the spirit of the times. It's what we are enduring at the moment. But having the rug pulled out from under you, that's painful because, because that was my primeval, that was my fundamental injury. When I lost my place and country at the age of 15. So then they keep doing it to you. They keep, sorry, it's expedient for us to stab you this time because you're elitist. You have, a colonial identity. You should never have had that. So it's expedient for us to pull the rug out from under you again. But it's okay because we're the martyrs, we're the angels, and it hurts us more than it hurts you. That's something that has happened to me. That's something that has really, really been, really painful, really, really traumatizing, but also very shocking, very disgraceful. When those in power do it to you, not just your peers, but those in power, you think, what? Really? You as well? Et tu, Brute? This is a video about having the rug pulled out from under you, and it's not nice. It's not nice at all. And it is why I am now in a position or attitude where I have no respect for the cultural left, the contemporary left. They would have to prove themselves to me over and over and over again if they wanted to buy back that respect. And I'm also in a state of self-preservation. I just don't think I want to endure that rug being pulled out again and them going, ha ha ha, but sorry, it hurt me more than it hurt you. I had to do it for the cause, Don't want to endure the insane people of the contemporary West anymore. And it's not just because I don't like them. but because, in fact, I have so much contempt that I don't see them as necessarily human. I see them as kind of fuzzy little ethereal substances floating around me. If I saw them, if I noticed somebody like that had betrayed me, I probably wouldn't really see them as a human being, but as something else. And that's all for the good. It's all for my recovery.